Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to Core Mining. If you have my talk piques any interest, I'll be outside for the rest of the day at my little inflatable booth there to answer any questions you may have, or certainly grab my card and we can follow up offline. Forward-looking statements. I encourage anybody interested in the equity to read all of our public disclosure. It's fairly strict disclosure in Canada, and we're really proud of our materials. So give it a read if you have any interest in the equity, certainly before buying any stock. Core is a gold company. It's a relatively new gold company. The company acquired assets privately and went public in November of last year into a really tough market. Didn't really get any capital into the company until May of this year, and is really just getting rolling on working its portfolio of assets. So that's really what we'll focus on today, is sort of the capital market side of the company and what we plan to do with some of the capital that we've brought in. So Core has got multi-million ounces of gold. We have 4 projects that carry those gold resources. We're still heavily owned, as we're a relatively new equity to the market, and we haven't done a lot of fundraising by insiders. So management and the board own 50% of the stock. Take that as a guarantee that we are fully aligned with shareholders on delivering per share value. We've raised $7 million from strategic investors over the last 6 months. $4 million of that from Macquarie Bank. Yes, we're a small cap miner with a bank as an investor. That bank is interested in a permitting project that we have in California. And I really took that as good validation when I decided to become CEO of this company about 3 months ago. We also attracted $3 million from Eric Sprott when he went on his investing spree over the summer. He's invested in the company because we have some really nice drill targets on our portfolio. And going forward, really the bulk of the news flow in the company is expected to come from the drill bit, which is good because I know that's what investors are often looking for. We believe we have a nice management and board for a small company. We've got a couple CEOs of other companies that are familiar with capital markets. We've got some technical skills, and I think we've got a good platform to go forward. The company was founded by a gentleman named James Hines. He's still the largest shareholder of the company. He made his money finding and selling aggregate deposits, so sand and gravel pits up in the oil sands part of Alberta. When the oil sands business dried up a few years ago, he moved to Vancouver to start a gold company. He, along with Adrian Rothwell, also on the board, and another founder, bought the 2 assets we have in California privately before going public and acquiring the BC assets. And they're still major shareholders and very supportive. They brought me in a few months ago to manage the company. We have 3 independent directors: Harry Poncrat, an ex-Macquarie banker; Don McDonald, who's currently the CEO of Norzinc. They're building a zinc-lead precious metals deposit up in northern Canada; and Brendan Cahill, who's the CEO of Exelon Resources, which is a silver company down in Mexico. Good group of people. Why I joined the company is really, it's all about fundamental foundations. The assets we have 2 assets in the Caribou region in south central British Columbia. One's a greenfield exploration project called Gold Creek. It's adjacent to Spanish Mountain, which is a 6 million ounce deposit in a publicly listed Canadian company. It's in a very prolific mining jurisdiction that hosts the Mount Polley mine, the Gibraltar mine, Barkerville Gold. It's at low elevation. It's road accessible. Nice, easy place to explore. And we've got some gold discovery there that we made last year with some holes. We're not currently investing any additional funds into that asset because it's a little too early stage for us at this point, but we'll look at that property more going forward. The other BC asset is called Fraser Gold, sometimes also referred to as the FG Gold Project. This project was the namesake of the company that we did a reverse takeover of to go public in November, a company previously called Eureka Resources. They had about 150 million market cap in 2006, 2007 when they were drilling out this deposit. They drilled about 1 million ounces of 0.8 grams between all categories. Really an uneconomic deposit, to be frank. They put a couple hundred holes into it, all very quick and dirty RC drilling. And they were looking, ultimately, their target on the project was a bulk disseminated deposit. And if I get to it, I'll show you one slide at the end why we think there's a way to reinterpret that deposit and create a more exciting story by using the drill bit. I talk about that one a little bit because it's the nearest term activity that we have in the company. We expect the permitting for that drilling program to come any day now, and we should have some drills turning later in the month or in early November, which means we should have drill results in December, January, and maybe into February next year from Fraser Gold. And then we have two assets which the company bought as a private company a couple years ago. One is called Long Valley. Long Valley has an existing epithermal deposit with oxide sulfide resources. We're doing some exploration work on that project to redefine that mineralization as well. It was drilled in the 90s by Royal Gold when Royal Gold was a gold company. And I'll show you one slide why we think that's a good use of exploration dollars. That drill program, subject to permitting, should be starting late in the year, early next year, and again, should be delivering drill results sometime around February and into PDAC next year. So we are deploying Eric Sprott's money to turn drills, and we do expect to see the results coming out of that over the next couple quarters. The foundation asset for the company, however, which Macquarie, if you recall from the beginning, invested in, is called the Imperial Project, and I'll spend a few minutes going through that project in some detail. This is the current list of resources in the company. The measured, indicated, and inferred total 2.5 million ounces of M&I, 2.4 million ounces of inferred across the three projects. The Imperial resources are still historic, meaning that those resources were reported by another company. We're currently in the process of updating that, and we should have a full technical report out on that project sometime in the next couple weeks to bring that up to current resources. I already talked about the capital structure of the company, so I won't hammer that too much. Looking at the share price, this is a share price chart since we went public. We went public in November of 2018, traded in the sort of 10 to 15 cent range for a little while. You know, brought in the Macquarie investment, brought in the Sprott investment. Now we're starting to do some work to deliver some news. And we've had I draw a line through it and say it's a fairly up and down trend, but like all juniors, it's tends to be volatile. You know, more lately, which maybe is the opportunity, we've traded down a bit on very low volumes. And some of the biggest problems with new investors looking at our company is because of the large internal shareholding. There's actually not a lot of stock available, so it's not very liquid. But you can still pick up small positions as long as you're patient in the market. Evaluation, the company. You know, the only way to value the company right now is on the ounces of current resources, and if you divide that by the market cap, we're currently trading at about to $8 Canadian an ounce, which seems to be under our peers. So I guess that's on us to deliver some drill results, explain the company to the market, and try and get some better valuation for our shareholders. This is just a little mapping of some of the things I told you about. That's the activity going on in the company. We plan to restart permitting at the Imperial Project, which is that large bar at the top. That's really the Macquarie money being spent over the next couple quarters at Imperial. We are doing some exploration work in and around the Imperial Project with some of the Eric Sprott money, with hopes of doing a PEA on the project early next year. And I say hopes because we owe the vendor of the project. So we bought the Imperial Project from Goldcorp in 2017. Part of the acquisition price was that on the first economic study of the project, we owe $1 million US to now Newmont, and they're allowed to take that in cash or shares. I'm trying to convince them to elect now to take shares because I don't really want to spend our dear shareholder dollars on a $1 million payment to Newmont. So if they agree to that, then I will commission the PEA, and we could have a PEA out before Christmas or maybe drifting into a Q1, depending on the timing of the deal with Newmont. Then we'd like to go out and do some exploration drilling, and I'll hopefully get a chance to show you a little bit about that as well. And again, I already talked about the drill programs we're planning at Fraser Gold and Long Valley. So I only put one slide in with Imperial, and I'll try and explain the asset based off this one slide. Imperial is located between a current operating mine called Mesquite. It was built in the 1980s by Gold Fields. It's produced almost 7 million ounces of gold. It's still operating and owned by Equinox Gold, which is Ross Beaty's gold vehicle. There's several years of mine life left at that asset, but it basically shows that you are in a mining jurisdiction where this deposit is. We're about 8 miles to the southeast. You can see those little red dots in the middle. That's our Imperial Project with the representing where the deposit is. And you go about 7 miles the other way, and there's a closed heap leach gold mine that was run by Glamis in the late 80s and early 90s. And Glamis, in fact, discovered Imperial in 1994. Did all of the technical work to complete a feasibility study, archaeology, biology, EIS, EIA, plant operations, put in their permitting, bought a shovel, parked it next to the site, and said, we found a mine right between 2 mines. Permitting should be a slam dunk. Unfortunately, they ran into Bill Clinton era environmental politics in California. The federal government, driven by California Senators Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, made it a political mission to block the development of the project. Ultimately, Glamis was able to clear away most of the roadblocks, so they changed the law in California to backfill open pit mines. And gold price by that point collapsed to $300. Glamis then merged and became Goldcorp. The project became too small to be interesting in them. They sued the California government because they felt they got screwed. That lawsuit lasted for 10 years, went all the way to NAFTA arbitration, and the project got lost in Goldcorp for almost 20 years. We were able to buy it out of Goldcorp in 2017. We think times have changed. Imperial County, which hosts the Mesquite Mine, is on the verge of losing its most significant taxpayer and a large local skilled employer in what is the 3rd poorest county in the entire United States, if you can believe it, in California. High unemployment, all the usual problems that go along with that. We believe we have a strongly supportive local community that will help back us to actually put this in production, because there's no logical reason there shouldn't be a mine here. We're complying with California's very, very tough, high standard environmental laws. It's a heap leach mine. There's no tailings. When we're gone, you won't even know the mine was ever there after the pits are backfilled. And it'll provide local community development and jobs for a 10 or 15-year period. So we think we're in a good position to try and get this project permitted, and that's why Macquarie invested their money. Long Valley. Long Valley is a fully intact epithermal system drilled by Royal Gold also in the 90s. They parked the project when the controversy hit, ironically, at the Imperial Project in 1996. Hasn't been touched by any exploration work since. The project's been dormant in Vista Gold, which has been focused on its Mount Todd project for many, many years. In this project, we plan to go back and drill underneath the oxide deposit that was previously defined by the last operator, looking for the feeder system and the high-grade roots and the sulfides to try and define something that's got an underground component to it, because we think that's more likely to be feasible in this part of California, which is more sensitive environmentally. So really, we're taking this project backwards, actually, from what Royal Gold thought was a development project to an exploration project to look for high-grade sulfides. And that drill program should be starting in a couple months. And the last thing before I wrap up is just returning all the way back to the beginning. Sort of the next thing you're going to see in the news flow of the company will be the drilling program at Fraser Gold up in British Columbia. Fraser Gold, if you recall, is a 1 million ounce, 0.8 gram deposit. In that deposit, for some reason I can't fathom, the previous operator drilled 240 holes. So there's tons of information on this deposit, quite tightly drilled. Unfortunately, they were looking for a bulk disseminated deposit, which means they wanted a large, near surface, low-grade deposit that they could put an open pit on. In those days, Osisko Mining and Detour were the names of the day, and everybody wanted, gram and a half, and as many ounces you could get to raise money. And they drilled the deposit with that in mind. They RC drilled. They didn't collect any structural information. They only assayed for gold, and they were just trying to get in as many holes as they can to define the resource. And really what they did was they lost all the information related to the structure of this deposit. So what we did when we took over the project, we went back. Thankfully, all the chips from the RC drilling were still in place. In RC mining, you don't actually get core. You just get little shattered bits of rock where you're kind of guessing where they came from. Relogged all those chips, redid a bunch of the assays, and really confirmed what we thought, which is there's very high-grade component in this deposit. So where this company took all the little intercepts over, say, 100 meters and put out, say, I drilled 100 meters of 1.5 grams. But within that, they had 5 meters at 20 grams. They had individual assays up to 250 grams, which means they're drilling through some higher grade veins and higher grade parts of this deposit. We believe some of those parts of that deposit connect up. And we're going to go back and drill in those blue lines you see plunging down through that deposit to try and connect up the high-grade components. And if we're successful, then follow the folding down where you see those little red squiggles to chase down into the structure to try and define a significant number of ounces at a higher grade. So that program should be starting in a couple weeks. We should be drilling 20 to 30 holes depending on success. And we should see the results from that starting to come out in December. So that's the end of core, and I think that's the end of my time. If I've piqued any interest, please come see me outside and grab a business card, or we can follow up over at the inflatable booth. Thanks.